I want to move on to the two topics that we really, really love, which is kind of like time management and habit building and all those kind of areas, right? But before I do that, I just want to get your views around leadership because it's interesting because when we were discussing this, you were like, "Well, I'm not sure about the whole leadership thing," because like you were thinking about leadership in maybe a different way. But
Mm.
anyone who's listening to your story and thinking about the kind of experiences you've been to and the places that you helped and stuff like this, they would definitely see you as a leader, right? So just tell me a little bit about like what is leadership for you, and maybe a leader that's kind of inspired you as well.
Okay, it's a really good question. So, for me, I think leadership. I mean, initially, it was the traditional sense of leadership into taking control and leading a team, like in the ice hockey, right? I think that was my first experience of leadership, and leading by example. But I think as it's evolved, I think my kind of sense of leadership has always been proactivity and taking the lead, right? And that could be something as simple. I'll give you a really simple example which people can relate to. So, for example, as we grow older and we get married, you naturally kind of lose touch with old friends, and that's one of the kind of things that even my coach, he in productivity, he has a whole module on how to socialize. Like, literally, like he's got like plans and how to kind of socialize, and he spends a lot of time planning his holidays and his weekends. It's quite amazing, like in a lot of detail, and who's going to call and invite, and it's clever because he basically has a great social life, but he plans it, right? And that's one of the things in our times because we all move, and it's not like when we're growing up, everyone in the same street, and you all live up and you grow up together, or like in the villages back home, and no, like you probably moved several times in your life, and you probably not, most of your friends are scattered across the country and the world, right? And so sometimes like leadership can be that in your area, in your city, and you've got a few friends, it could be like you organizing a get together, right? Or organizing an Islamic event, right? And I mean a simple event. It might be like a gathering of dhikr or a gathering of ta'aleem. Or it could be like, so one thing I remember doing is initiating and organizing like a kind of cottage trip, for my friends, couple friends all around the country, like different friends around the country and initiating in that way. And I knew if I didn't do that, nobody else would do it, right? So for me, that's leadership, right? It is when you see where something has to be done, there has to be initiative. Another example is charity, fundraising. So many Muslims, mashallah, well, they'll see there's a need and they say, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a sponsored run or sponsored
Yeah.
walk. And that's leadership for me. When you see there's a need and you take the initiative, you don't wait for someone else to do it. You take the initiative, you organize it. That is, I think that's as great an example of leadership as it can possibly. And that's what we need as many Muslims in Ummah to do as much as possible. Because if everyone can do that, they look at, there's this reminds me of a concept in Covey, which was the circle of influence and the circle of concern. Remember that? So you have like so many people have a big circle of concern, and their circle of influence might be really small. So circle of concern is like what you worry about, right? So I'm worried about the people on my street. I'm worried, or like I'm worried about the ummah. I'm worried about people in Palestine. I'm worried about this, right? And I used to give the taxi driver analogy. Sometimes I don't know if this still happens as much, but sometimes you get in a cab in whatever city, Muslim cab, and he just complains about everyone, right? Oh, the imams are really corrupt here. They're doing tax fraud here, and you've got that.
Yeah.
They're just complaining about everything. You're like, okay, yeah, but, okay. So, brother, what are you doing? What are you? Nothing, right? Just complaining and paying the bills, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And so you find that sometimes people have a large circle of concern. It's not really true concern, but they have this large circle of things they worry about and complain about. Their circle of influence could be tiny, and actually, the larger it grows and the less action they take, their circle of influence actually decreases and decreases. They're just so ineffective. Whereas the opposite, you have someone who has you have a circle of concern. It might be small, okay? It might be just your family, and that's why Allah in the Quran tells us to save ourselves and our family from the fire, right? And so maybe it's just your family, maybe it's just yourself first, right? You work on yourself, and then you've got your family, and maybe your friends in your neighborhood. If you work on that, right? If you exert your efforts into your circle of influence, then it grows, right? And you can impact more. And to give the example, that some people have the opposite. Sometimes their circle of influence, and this is a sad situation, their circle of influence is larger than their circle of concern. So in other words, maybe they're wealthy, maybe they're driving past someone who, to a gathering or to some place, and they could easily help that person out, but they're not even thinking about it. So they've got influence, but they're not using it. So leadership is when you work within your circle of influence, and you're effective in that. And because of that, your circle of influence grows, and inshallah, your concerns can grow and you can meet those concerns.
Amazing. I love that. I really, really like that. I think, I completely agree with everything you said about initiative and stuff. So, who's a leader that really inspires you?
Wow. I think Sheikh Faraz is a great example, to be honest with you, because when I first met him,
Which
he
Sheikh
had like
Faraz? Because I know a few Sheikh Faraz. So tell
oh,
us.
sorry, Sheikh Faraz Rabbani
Okay,
of
good.
Seekers Guidance, CEO of Seekers Guidance. And so the reason why I say him is I've seen him from like grow from small, like to huge impact. And I remember when I first met him, and the thing I like about him is that he's so, he's very relaxed, really, really, really easy to get on with, really chilled out. When I first met him, he was just studying in Jordan, just studying, doing his own thing, and he had no intention to kind of leave the Middle East, right? And I remember we used to beg him, please come to the UK, please come to, people, please come to Canada. And at that time, nobody could imagine him leaving because he just stayed there. He was just always there, always refused, right? And they give the example of people like, another great example is, I think it was Mufti Taqi Uthmani as well, that his own sheikh would, he would ask permission to travel, like he used to get requests to speak and to teach here and this and that, and his sheikh would always tell him, no, not yet. You need to focus on yourself, work on yourself, right? And Sheikh Faraz was the same. And I like these two examples because they worked on themselves for quite a long time. It was like, we're talking about 6-7 years, and they were hidden from the world, like relatively speaking, right? Nobody knew about them. They just kept working on it. When the ijazah was given, right? When they were said, so Sheikh Faraz was encouraged to go to Canada. Mufti Taqi was given permission. Yes, you can start teaching. I mean, look, we can see the impact now, right? And mashallah, they went from strength to strength. They scaled, and I thought, and what I like about Sheikh Faraz was his vision, like with Seekers Guidance, and even people were always telling him, you've got to charge, but he had this vision. He wanted to make it free, and he believed in it so strongly. And alhamdulillah, it's just wonderful to see the scope and the scale of how it's grown and how it went from this little mailing list. I was in that mailing list at the beginning. We just answering questions. And then it just grew and grew, became an institution. And then and he had challenges, some of the institutions closed down, but he just kept restarting, and he kept going. He never lost focus. He never lost his drive and enthusiasm. And it was absolutely full tunnel vision. Like he believed in this project and he was never going to give up. And alhamdulillah, you see the fruit. So I love that as an example. Someone who has a vision and works on it, worked on himself first, and waited until it was the right time, and then, despite the setbacks, keeps going, and alhamdulillah, you see the result in terms of scale and impact on the ummah.
MashaAllah, amazing.